transition are buzzwords for describing phases of change in societies. Which role does literature as an artistic negotiation of changing worlds in the different genres present in the round table, which is not really round, but you know the metaphor? What do they play here? What is writing in itself a permanent process of change and metamorphosis mean in an aesthetic and in a socio-political regard? Which forms and utopias do writers imagine? Which boundaries do they challenge? And which do they challenge beyond what is called transition? Here we have these things. Where's Vidi, who's doing this all morning? So we have that again. Okay? It's a super pleasure for me to introduce again Zukiswa Wanner, which we heard the introduction of your person, but rather your work before. So I'm not going to reiterate everything. I wanted to have you here because some of your works really impressed me, especially the Madams, how it's tackling like big issues and questions in a popular and in an accessible genre, and trying to make literature a space for negotiating all these big things. So I'm really impressed by that work, which was from 2007. Of course, you've written much more, and you challenged other genres as well, like children's literature. We had an expressive reading about the Refilbe story, the Rapunzel rewriting situated in Lesotho, which really had the Bayreuth kids screaming to have her next year here again for their birthdays. And also, my own research is closely related to Sophiatown, and I particularly found interesting what Zukiswa and other writers were doing with classics of the canon of South African literature, in particular Cantabra's The Suit, which also talks about transformation and so on. We're going to talk about that later. So I'm very happy that you're here. Also, your engagement with Read SA is going to be something we can talk about a bit more here, okay? So welcome again. Thanks for being here. Okay, we'll do this clapping later. The second one I wanted to introduce is a special guest, Tirop Simatei from Eldoret University. Eldoret Moy University is one of our partner universities with Big Sus, and perhaps you saw the cheer yesterday because our graduate school just got prolonged for another 5 years, so we're happy to keep that connection flowing and having great people here like Peter, who's around for quite a bit as an Alexander von Humboldt scholar to conduct research and probably write up a lot of research that had happened already. You're a professor of literature, and your PhD was on the relation of writing and nation building. So we're also going to be particularly interested in what writing means here. And I'm very happy to have that panel with my Abla Sibel ID, so I'm going to hand over to you now to introduce the rest of the crowd. Okay?
Thanks so much, Katerina, and thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. And I would like to thank our guests who are also here. It is my great pleasure to introduce you first, Kossi Efoui. And yesterday in a panel, Professor Ute Fendler, who is not here, she has just told us it would really work to learn French if you don't know French, just because of Kossi. Because, well, we are really encountering a kind of political activist here. He is Togolese-based French, if I would dare to say so, because he has been living for the last 20 years in France, even more than 20 years. He holds a Master of Philosophy from the University of Benin, and in 1980s he was pretty much a political activist, which has been, he has been in the movement of the 1980s of student revolution. And yeah, I'm not going to tell you all about the presents and the awards that he has got. So, because my French does not allow me, I cannot speak French, unfortunately. Yeah, and our second guest, or the fourth guest, let's say, in this case, is Olumide Popoola. She is London-based Nigerian German writer and poet, and she is also a spoken word artist. At the beginning of our festival, she has performed some of her spoken word performance, and she holds an award from My Ayin, and right now she is doing her PhD studies in London. Please welcome all of them.
While we've been thinking about this issue of transformation and writing in the course of what has been discussed in the last days, we thought that obviously it's a multi-layered affair, but there's three big layers that kind of stood out for us that we can discuss together. First of all, the table also connects very nicely to the intro speech we had by Peggy Pische, who was voice of Audre Lorde and her perception of transforming our silences. So what is, like, having these days that we spend together, what does it mean still to have this transformation of silence by the literary voice, either the spoken word or the written word, and what does it do to the creation of the subject? Okay, this is one layer that would be interesting to discuss with you. Another one is the impact, which also this very South African kind of transition term talks about this issue of transformation of society, and then I would be interested in having, again, two layers of that one layer. Like what can a text-immanent approach do in terms of the transformation of society? And I always like to relate what we discuss here to the work that is done at Iwa House, because only recently we had a South African artist, visual artist here, who's Sex, who's doing something very engaging and interesting, I find, with literary texts. She takes literature texts that are considered canonic, like Jules Verne, 20,000, how's the English title? 20,000 Meilen unter Meer, 20,000 miles meters below sea level. I should know. But what she's doing is she's taking a post-colonial approach and going into the literary imagination that you have, the world that is inscribed or written into being by Jules Verne, and she tries to change, for example, the books that are in the library and the kind of decor he has on the walls, and all these little text-immanent things. So this is an interesting approach I find for transformation within a genre perhaps, or within a literary imagination. And of course the other thing that is a bit more not immanent in text but has to do with real life engagements perhaps is political engagement by means of writing, okay? But then also I would be interested to discuss with you the transformation that is happening to the author or to the literary person itself. What happens in the process of writing? What happens perhaps in a lifetime of writing? You all, well, some of you have been written for more than a decade probably. So what do experiences and well, a life lived turned into literature and turned back again perhaps, what does it do to the literary voice? So there's a number of layers on which we can investigate this issue of transformation and transition, not to have it too shallow in a only political science perhaps. And I would love to start with a fairly easy question perhaps that is addressed to Zukiswa. We just had the reading of The Madams, which was in a sense challenging a lot of literary conventions, I would say. Like somebody was saying like it was a slap in the face, you know? So the things you did with The Madams, like on a very nice and humorful and very approachable level, were like cutting edge and hard and wow, you know? So what is, in your work, what is the relation between writing and change and transformation, and perhaps also this political Überbau of transition that is always talked about in the context of South Africa? Because your book hit the market in 2006, I would say, but it probably drew on a lot of experience in South Africa in the so-called teenage years. So what is the connection of writing and transformation and change in your work?
I actually only started staying in South Africa in 2003, so they didn't have the teenage years and stuff. It was more the type of things that I observed in those 3 years that I've been, well, the 2 years before The Madams was written. So regarding the transition of myself as a writer, obviously there is, having written like 3 novels and stuff, the one thing that one absolutely sees is that a lot more people know you, but you're still broke. So I remember I got really excited. I was at OR Tambo Airport and going to Cape Town, and the girl said to me, "Oh my God!" The girl was giving me the ticket. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You're Zukiswa Wanner." And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Wow, I saw you in a magazine." And I was a bit sad because I thought she was doing that because she had read my work. So yeah, you become more visible. I mean, another example is the woman who saw me in the mall and she said to me, "You are dead straight resemblance to my favorite writer. And I said, oh, do you? Do I? And she says, yes, you really look like her. You guys could be twin sisters. And I said, oh, who's your favorite writer? And she said, oh, it's Zukiswa. And I said, and I did, every writer has, when I win a big award, smile, or at least I do. So I did my whole little smile, like, oh, well, I am Zukiswa. I got to donate blood. I was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. And she looked at me, top to bottom, about 3 times, and she said, but you're so ordinary. And she walked away. So that's what Grisha has done for me. That's my transition.
Well, basically my question is going to be both for Kossi as well as for Olumide. I do conceptualize transformation in a different layer in the sense that transformation, so something which is resisting to be formed, and both of you are coming from various backgrounds, I mean Nigerian, German and London, as well as Popoola and France, and you have some ties with Germany too. And therefore I would like to ask you, how do you conceptualize your own writings in terms of transforming the minds of your readers or your audience?
Well, I don't think that it is okay. It might be possible that I lack words in English to say, so I would like you to translate if I shift it to French. Yeah, I think you don't. When you write stories, it is because you try to make words sound. In terms of music and in terms of meaning, you want to make words sound in an unusual way, because the matter that we're working with, that is called language, is a common thing. We all share it, and we all share the heritage of significations and ideological significations too. So when you start writing, dealing with words, all the question in poetry is, how do I make sound these words an unusual way? So that's the way I see transformation. It is in the work, in this corps à corps with la matière. Like this, the corps à corps is, like in a combat, like in a fight. I mean, it is a manipulation. Yeah. So what you do with words is that words resist, in French, you say ça veut dire. You say a word means, you say ce mot veut dire, which literally means the word wants to say, as if the word is expressing itself. But it is it is someone who's talking, who's writing, who is doing something with words, who is getting from those words, those usual words, some new attitude that can lead to new interpretations. Yeah. So that's where I see the transformation. It is not an aim to transform. That it's dangerous. That's like maybe someone is visited by a great truth. Yeah. But yeah, he should be carefully with the way he wants to share it with others.
I feel a bit similar that I'm not intending to transform anyone. Maybe only myself and to find my truth. And in terms of sex, what you say about word, I think I find that about structure. That I look very much at structure. How can I take structure apart and bring other parts into an example of this is about sadness of the novel and voices. Yeah, so it's I don't know if I said how to transform anyone. That's other people's business. I think it's my business is to look at what stories I want to tell and how can I tell them and what have I learned and how can I, maybe that's where transformation comes from, shift from what I have learned, which are the normal ways of thinking, and translate that back into the form. That's kind of what I'm busy with theoretically, rather than, people take what they want from it anyway, and I've learned that in spoken word, that I can do a poem that's very specific to racist experiences, and the people who never experienced racism will feel that strongly, so you don't have control over that.
And how's that with, does it work like that? How's it the point you just read, the two of you were speaking, that we have to be also very careful about these, intended transformations or something that can be done by literature, or that poets and writers can be employed or something like that, like poets of the state or whatever. Like, how did you, from a scholarly point of view, combine this idea of nation building and analyzing literature in the work you've been doing, Peter? This is addressed to you. Sorry, that's why I stare at you all the time. So this would be interesting because you told me I'm not a creative writer. Don't ask me questions about my two poems. So I would love to ask you from the scholarly perspective, like how did you analyze this issue of transformation and bring it about change in the work you've been doing academically?
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm not a creative writer, so, but I'm really happy to be with these guys, and especially the last reading today afternoon was interesting in the sense that you can look at change in terms of the many locations within which literature is being produced. Diaspora with regard to Najifa, for example. My sister here, one of the interesting things she's doing is to stray beyond, the normally acceptable, thematics or concerns. Going to areas where years ago we would say we cannot do that because we are taboo and so forth. But I took the whole issue of political engagement, which I think is a very tired subject now. But then, I thought I was seeing a very clear and interesting relationship between the imagination of writers in East Africa and the connection between that imagination and the political project that was going on, in the construction of nationhoods in East Africa. I think you already suspect that, I was being possessed by these ideas of nation and narration, Probably I was just trying to see how is this being done with others in East Africa. But the most interesting thing, probably a transformation of my role as I was engaging in that issue, was to discover that there were other writings that were not necessarily, connecting with this nation-building narrative. This thing when we talk about pre-colonialism, colonialism, decolonization, and then post-colonialism, and you find that initially all the narratives, in East Africa, from people like Ngugi wa Thiong'o and so forth, were following that kind of model. But in the process, I discovered that other voices, especially from writers of Asian origin, in East Africa, were doing a different thing altogether, because it's like they were trying to transcend, if you like, the exclusivities that comes with the definition of a nation and so forth. Because I suspect, of course, or rather, I found out, of course, that this was something to do with somebody I think talked about transnationalism, at the very beginning of this workshop. And I had this feeling that it had something to do with the multiple histories to which these writers are here to. And so this initial understanding of nation and narration gets disrupted, on the way as a transnational, idea crops into the works.
And that kind of links to the issue of the overall topic of the conference, or what we tried to discuss in the last days, like how can we also by means of literature and literary expression, how can we change the outlook on history and you know, this neat kind of, this is past, this is present, this is history, how can we change the conceptualization of these things? And Zukiswa, I want to go back to that one what we've just been talking about with the figure of Tandy. Was that approach to set, sorry, I don't look at it, to set to stage the madams in the way you did with all these complexities and also making fun of history in the sense that it's always considered to be separate, like in the case of, of the figure of Tandy perhaps and of colonial entanglements in the very graphic sense.
No, I'm not that deep.
Amanda's been writing you.
But what happened, I was discussing with Dee outside. The thing that happened with the madams is it came out of a very interesting. Okay. It came out of an advert that was flighting at some point in time in South Africa. It was called it was one of those that said "What if?" and then they had the white people staying in the townships and being the taxi drivers, and the black people were in the burbs and the white people. It was really subversive, and it was a fantastic idea. I just thought, wow, this is a great idea, and I had absolutely no intention of being a writer. Certainly not a novelist. And the way it worked was I met Kossi, and he said to me, and I sent him a few of my pieces, which are in a format that's very popular in Kenya called creative nonfiction. And he said to me when he saw me, he said, you know, you really should consider writing fiction. And I suspect it was because my creative nonfiction was not really good. And I said to him, oh, no, I'm too much of a realist to write fiction. You know, and I sounded very pompous about it all. And he said, that's such bullshit. But anyway, a little while later on down the line, he introduced me to somebody else. And he said, oh, this is one of the best young voices in literature we have in the country. And I hadn't written anything. And this guy said to me, oh, can you send me something that you've written? It was at the Thursday. In South Africa, in Joburg, we have parties on Thursday. All our biggest parties are on Thursday. And the reason we have parties on Thursday is generally, I think it might be because the Jewish guys fund them and then they have the supper. I don't know what it is. we have parties on Thursday. Anyway, so I met this man on a party on Thursday and he gave me his card, and on Friday I sent him my stuff. And on Wednesday he emailed me back and he said, you must write fiction, you know. So the marriage was actually born out of that because it was, I got this idea and I said, oh, why don't I write something based on that little narrative from the advert? And initially it was really supposed to be cut and dry. Black woman gets a white maid and she's got a white friend and a black friend, and how do they deal with it? But then, you know, as so happens in novels, the characters ended up writing themselves, and it just went another dimension. I started realizing that I had gender issues that needed to be addressed, and it was contemporary issues that ended up, you know, despite the little race thing that happens at the beginning and stuff and everything. I think perhaps the reason why the book has resonated so well with many people, like in Italy, in France, is because they realize being a working woman sometimes is really so demanding. You're expected to be like a super mom, you know. If you have children, you're expected to be a super worker at the office, because if you fail there, then it means, oh, you're putting too much attention on your family at the expense of what you call it. And of course, when you get home, you make dinner because you're like this superwoman. You make dinner, you do everything. And then, tired as you are, you're also expected to be a super slut. Because if you don't have sex with your partner and he cheats on you, then it's because you weren't giving him something. So it became that type, it took that type of energy where it's like, okay, are we lucky? How lucky are we? We have all these opportunities, but still, because of our gender, we're still put in this little box where we're supposed to do certain things. So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that it's on. Okay, I'm pretty sure that the audience also has some question, so feel invited to just ask, and especially perhaps this comment would be something that some of you have a question for or a comment or something.
Look at the enthusiasm.
Probably I have a question to Kossi in this case. Mostly in your works, especially the piece that you have read to us yesterday from Shadow of Things to Come, you are always talking about the limited freedom of speech. But basically you have been, I do believe that your experiences are somehow influencing your writings, and you are mostly in other works too, you are always talking about this limited freedom of speech. Could you elaborate a little bit about this topic, firstly? And secondly, I would like to know whether you are aiming or heading in your writings, which you are writing in France as long as you are living in Europe, whether you are carrying this mission of being a kind of political activist.
Yeah, well, I took part in some protest students' movements in 25 years ago or more, and this is the experience in a dictatorship. I never thought that I came in this world to fight a crazy dictator. That's my destiny or my biography. I never dreamt my life as a great fighter of dictatorship, right? I dreamt my life as a writer. That's all. Since when I was a kid. So I grew up understanding that I could not be a writer, because being a writer in that society where I have been welcomed is being dead. So this is very crazy, and so I had to do something personally, and so I did something. I never, that's all. I mean, if I cannot write, doing what I did is to write about anything. But if I need to write against the dictator before writing about a bird, so I will write against the dictator. That is the limit, you know. That is the. When I say you cannot be a writer, you can be a writer, but you can just repeat things that you have, that you are called to repeat, and that's not called writing. So if I want to achieve what I felt like my dream, I have the opportunity. I have only one opportunity, is to fight and liberate the space where my speech, my words can take place. And you see this place, this mental place is not empty of words. There are words all the time. On the radio, you know, you have the same words all the time. It is not an empty space. And it is, and you don't have, you have the repetition of the same words all the time. It is not different words or different meanings that gets into conflict. I'm not talking about that, but the repetition of the same thing, of the same words, of the same formulas, and it is something that really, and the control also of what you're reading, what book comes into the country, how you're happy when you discover a book that has traveled dans le double fond d'une veste, and or articles. And we didn't have internet those days, so for me it is, how do I liberate the page to write my words on it? So the political confrontation is inevitable. I get out of the country, so I did both. I see, but now there's this experience in a dictatorship made me aware of the fact that you can be speaking and it is not your voice. It is some kind of big voice coming from thousands of years, or this voice, it can be a voice that is called nation. It can be a big voice speaking through your mouth. So writing is how to find one's own voice, singular voice. So to go through this process is to believe that there's always somewhere some limitation that you have to face when you write. It is not only something that is linked to a dictatorship, but the experience in the dictatorship made me aware of this sensitivity of words, of this gap, and how it can affect the person who speaks and the person who listens. I don't know if I have answered the question.
Thanks so much. Are there any questions to our guests or any comments before I get?
Sorry, Fadia, sorry.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear all of you speak, and I want to say thank you for such illumination of nodding here, writing notes. And I wonder about this relationship that Kossi has just referred to, of leaving and then being away for sometimes decades or sometimes to finish one's studies, and having to, that very process of leaving is already an illumination and an agony and transformation and a promise. And I'm interested in what happens about that relationship of what one has left. One has left, in your case, a threat, but also the very act of responding to that threat has created an insight and a creativity and an origin for you. And but you cannot go back, so you have to create something new. But that newness is only because of what you cannot have. And so I'm interested, all of you have had this experience of displacement through which your thinking has emerged, and then you have to continue that relationship of the thing that you love and feared and want and cannot have and perhaps no longer want. So, in my own sense of not having had to go into exile but studying away, and then, loving away, and I also have to reflect that this relationship of that other place, that place that in your head now, is a delicate and complicated one. And that what is that place for you? What is Togo for you? What is all the places that you are? Maybe all of them mental, maybe all of them physical, and for all of you, that place of the past, but also that place of origin.
What is Togo for me? Actually, I have always doubted that country exists, and and today I am planning to create a movement for the dissolution of Togo. I really mean it. And I have found the slogan, I don't know how you say it. The slogan in French is si vous ne pouvez pas vous débarrasser le pays du dictateur, débarrasser le dictateur du pays. If you cannot get the country, if the country cannot, someone can translate.
If you cannot get rid of the dictator, if the country cannot get rid of the dictator, then the dictator should get rid of the country.
Yeah. But I will mean it, and I mean it in this. I think about this Pan-African vision. That was that was one of the energy in those independence days. During the years, the people were fighting for the independence. It was the idea that the first thing to do is to get rid of the frontiers. How do they call it? Borders. When in independent Africa, this was not respected, but the first thing that we decided was to keep these borders the way they were. But they cannot deal with the phantom of this dream, because this dream was real for the people like my father who were fighting for independence. They were not thinking about Togo, they were thinking very broadly from the south to the north. That was their culture. And then when they got, when independence took place, this thing disappeared, and then but became a phantom, ghost, and a strong ghost. And so you have to deal with this ghost. So what did they create? Created something like African personality, or they took the problem, they just examined the problem in some symbolic area, and there's some Black Mountain or African, but when you travel, when you want to meet brothers and sisters, you understand this thing doesn't work. It's just that is what has become a ghost of the original idea. So I cling to the original idea. What's struggle for me? Nothing for the moment. I dream of something different.
See, I was at Open Forum with Popoola, and there was somebody who talked about that, and you know how they apparently the Organization for African Unity transformed into African Union, and he said unfortunately nothing has helped because they took away the organization. And that's just African organization. So yeah. I understand you, but I think it's particularly painful when last year I had to go to Algeria and I had to fly to France and then fly back to Algeria from Joburg. So yeah, certainly there is something to be said for that.
There is one more question.
Hi. I was just thinking about the idea of literature and transformation the whole time, and I think sometimes we take it for granted. You know, like literature is always there to make a great impact and a positive impact, which is probably not always the case, right? Because there have always been quite a few writers who have written for, you know, certain ideological purposes, say in the colonialist times, certain kinds of representations that they were forced to do, etc., etc. And that's why I always wonder when writers write, and let's take it to be a reality that all of us here, you know, all of the writers here want to cause like a great change, right, a positive change. But what really constitutes a positive change in this sense, like, you know, writers, how objective can they be? You know, writers write from experience, or they deal with language their own ways, like how objective could one be? If you're talking about racism or gender issues or sexuality issues, you're trying to represent, in a sense, a large group of people, right? In a sense, could be. Like, you know, what kind of audience do you have in your mind? Do you have yourself, or do you think you can really actually represent everybody? Who are you representing? This much or this? I mean, it's always the question of, if I'm writing about gender issues in a certain context or a certain culture, who gives me the right as a writer or as an activist to claim that I'm giving voice to this and that person who probably don't want my voice, or who, etc., if you know what I mean. So I just I always wonder about this issue, if you could just comment on that. Thank you.
I would say a few things. the thing about transformation, I think you cannot think about the way of writing, especially if you're writing a story that's thinking organic about it. So if you go about, or maybe let me talk about myself, I don't, because we're talking about something that is later, and that needs to be in the process as well. And the thing about me, so I'll continue on that. For me, it's about the process is very important. So the other thing about being objective, I don't claim to be objective. The beauty of fiction is it is subjective, and that is how the transformation takes place, because somebody who just didn't have that experience and never has that experience somehow can feel empathetic about it. So, and that's how transformation takes place. We talked about this earlier in the conference about literature and imagination and the power of imagination. And I think that imagining, that is where we can now go forward, yeah, because we need to create that possibility first. It's a little bit with this Yoruba god. You have Ogun and Oya. Oya goes first to make the way, and then Ogun makes the thunder. Everybody knows, and everybody hears the thunder, but nobody knows who paved the way. And that is what I mean, the imagination first. It's like a mosaic. You need to train that and build that, make the possibility for then our actions to take place. But I think what you're saying about who do we represent is an issue. It's an issue that can give me nightmares. Can I tell this story? Is this right? Is this word right? Is what she's wearing? What message am I sending out in the world? And as somebody who thinks about these issues, I think, yeah, it's a big thing. And I started teaching creative writing as well as some of my students. It's your responsibility. Nothing is innocent, everything matters, so you need to think about it. But at the same time, of course, as an artist, I'm allowed to be free, I'm allowed to play in a responsible way. Yeah, I just have to take responsibility for my actions, what I put out in the world.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I think with me personally, when I write, I am bringing out questions that I think about. I really want my reader, maybe as they get entertained, to also pause and ask questions. When you say Africans are not gay, you know, or whatever it is, what are you saying? When you say, what does it mean to be a man? You know, for instance, is a man the guy who should go and get a job while the woman, you know, that type of thing. So I certainly like to ask the questions, but I obviously, because I'm a little bit irreverent, just a little bit. I try to do it in a fun type of way, but that will also make you question. So it is my truth. It is my question. And obviously, if you may not feel very great about it, or it pisses you off at the end of the day, I have elicited a reaction actually. So maybe in some way I have said something that's meaningful. I think what bothers any artist, certainly me, is if somebody sees a work of art, or reads a work of art, or listens to a work of art, and they're totally indifferent to it. If there's a reaction, then yeah, there is something to be said. You might disagree with it, and you feel free to do so, and you might agree with it, then that's fine too.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I think it's also transformation in that very sense of writing, transforming, you know, attitudes or knowledge about things that have been seen differently before. I'm thinking here, for example, of the emergence of feminist, writings, for example, in the 80s, and we begin then to rework our understandings of things like, the nation, or things like colonialism. If I read, for example, Sissy's novel, for example, I see a different kind of engagement with colonialism from this very, very interesting feminist perspective. Something that I didn't get when I was reading, decolonization narratives of writers like Efoui, for example. So I think there's a level in which we can talk about writing also transforming, perspectives of things that we had always thought were supposed to be, like that.
I would like to say two words about objectivity. I think there are a lot of disciplines which need objectivity when they deal with reality. But imagination is not, fiction is a way to reality. But this is not a way at this objectivity. When we take the imagination way, it is like instead of, let's say there's a war, for example, you have some objective information about the number of people who's dead, who are dead. You have the number of bombs that have been thrown. You have pictures. You have analysts who tell you the forces and then the movements and the strategy. You can have all the objective information on this war, but this will not bring you what a writer can bring you by letting the voice of one single person, these millions of persons who are dead, just the voice of a single person. You read 300 pages of that, and it seems that you make another way to the same reality. So I don't think that there's a need of objectivity when we take that way of imagination, but it's not, the idea is not that this way is get rid of reality. No, it is another way to reality, I think. And the difference is between the ideological speech and what can be, what transformation an ideological speech can bring, which is mental manipulation. The difference between that and what fiction brings is, let me take an example. Someone will say, this book has changed my life. His life or her life, the same person can give this book to some other reader who would appreciate or not. Well, it's all right. Well, I don't like this book. But for another person, it is so important. The book has changed his life. This freedom, that belongs to the reader, belongs to, we take advantage of it to be free also in what we propose, because we know that if something changes, it is the reader who decides. Yeah.
There's a comment by Popoola and can we go away from that?
Yeah, I'll speak after you.
Okay.
Do I speak? I might. Do you want to? I don't know. I'm very confused. Okay. Is this on? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I mean, this panel, this whole festival, this panel especially, has just been so, and the ones before, it's just also been so joyful. And I want to stick with the issue, with the question of transformation, which is part of the theme for this panel. But I want to maybe ask us, maybe ask us all more broadly, but ask the panelists specifically about transformation in a slightly different way that we've been talking about this afternoon, even though I'm pretty sure that this is an experience of transformation that you have. I find myself often, because what we're talking about, doing away with Togo, and I often feel like the country that writing is the country that I live in as well, in many respects. It's my chosen country. Of course, I'm other things, but writing is really where I live. Kind of reading, teaching, writing, and choosing the creative. And of course, all of you could choose, and even Tirop, who says, I'm not a writer, I wrote 2 poems, chooses to write publicly on creative writing, right? So you're not writing, you're not doing kind of media analysis necessarily, which you could do too if you felt like it, right? And so there's this kind of commitment to an imaginative writing process, and I think it was quite imaginative anyway, even though you deny it, Tirop. So what I want to know, okay, so we talk about transformation, but we often talk about transformation
understandably, is something quite disruptive, it's something quite difficult, it's something, but of course we read the literature and we study it, both for its torment and for its utter joy and pleasure, right? And many writers often talk about they can't not write, it drives them crazy, they want to kill themselves, but they don't go and become engineers, right? they come back and they write another novel and they have a favorite and they do that and all of these things. And so what happened, and I think that some of the transformation that happens in creative in relation to the creative is not just happening, and the change is not just happening in the, we're shifting, but the shift isn't just happening at a traumatic level, and much change is difficult or painful, but part of the transformation is also joyful. And I'm just wondering whether each of you could share with us what the place of pleasure, the place of joy, the place of discovery in your own transformation processes as writers, readers, as people who are both readers and writers and so on. And whether there is any sense of, I suppose you talk about it differently, but also whether there's any sense of kind of returning to it. So is it the same place, or is it something that happened, and yeah. I'm going to stop, otherwise I'll just tell you what I think. Very productive.
Shall we just get the next question and have a kind of collective answer and finish it? We are pretty much delighted. It is great, but unfortunately our time is limited. So you can just ask the question and they can just answer collectively.
Well, I was actually trying to do you people a favor because asking you to be brief is very difficult. But I will try to be. The point out for me, it wasn't so much a question rather than something which I think with time you probably will be able to address. My own experience, not of being a writer, but I think of becoming something where you are recognized by people. Has been how frustrating. I found it very frustrating that sometimes when you do something and maybe people see you on a cover of a book or you are in the paper, I've had to see that you become, you have to develop several faces, because every time people see you that, oh, you are that one. And sometimes you're not in the mood to talk to people and sit down and make small talk, but there's this person who just is so excited to see you, and you are in the supermarket trying to figure out which piece of meat to buy, and then somebody sees you, and you know that if you don't answer them well, this is the image they are going to carry with them forever, Like I met her and this is what she said. So you have to always smile and look good and whatever, even if you are feeling horrible that day. Now, I'm imagining how you people have to put up with this when you've reached this level, of where you've several books, or you've got a book that has been shortlisted, or whatever it is that you've done. This life that you get out there, how I'm sure it's difficult to manage, because sometimes you just want to be me. There are times when I've woken up and felt like saying, can people today forget about the academic freedom saga and just greet me as me and maybe don't even see me? Which brings me to the preferred silence. Now, the issue that I do want you to address, if you can, really, is how do you choose your genre? Is it the one that chooses you, or do you have a story and say, this is going to be a short story, or this is going to be a novel? What happens there? Because I've often wondered how that, I've already asked one who said, it shows me, it's not as if I whatever. So I don't know how it is with you. How does the genre work? Does it have to intersect with audience, or does it intersect with the message? How does that go? Thank you.
So I mentioned a lot. I come very much from spoken word, and to answer both your questions together, my most joyful place recently was discovering fiction, and it was a very theoretical approach. I was spending all the time. But I think it answers your question as well. The time was right to put things very subjectively, to come back to you, rather than to make any objective statements or be in reaction to something, but to open a space and also work with different silences, talk about things that maybe cannot be spoken about. So I cannot go out and do a spoken word piece because I might not be talking about it, so I have to describe that. So in a way, the genre had to come in, I needed that space to build all of this up. And it was, I feel like fiction freed me. It's definitely not going to be the only genre I've been working in, but it gave me a new dimension, a new freedom to express these other things, including preferred silence.
Well, how does it come? Like, I don't. For me, it is like it is like a vision comes like a vision, you know, and I can feel, yeah, I can feel what it is supposed to be. Like it tastes, it tastes like have the taste of this have the taste of a novel, or a taste of a play, or the taste. I don't know how to define this, but you feel really clearly. Yeah, so maybe this word is called inspiration, right? Yeah, I mean you have that, like like you see the shadow of something, and you can imagine what is there, and you show that the great thing is there because you just seen a part of it, or even the shadow of it. But it is so clear that it is there. Yeah. Pleasant. What was your question was joyful? Yeah. Well, so when this vision, right, you have to realize something. So what I love is how I more and more I envision idéal, like on top of a mountain. I have to go get something there, and so that's why you can feel tired, or like someone who's climbing a mountain but who will never get down because he knows that he has aimed to climb the mountain, and he is happy while feeling tired, feeling thirsty, but he's happy at each step. So this space is when I write, that's where I find myself. And but globally, biographically, speaking, I feel good as someone who's roaming. You know, I always think of those blues singers on the road, or those blind singers with one guitar and going from place to place and singing things, and you know, that kind of, yeah, roaming person suspected of every bad thing that has happened in the village where he has passed. That's just, yeah, fragile, roaming person, but poisonous, yeah, people who, yeah, I love being that person, and when I write, I feel myself visited by those figures, and it's a really pleasant company that
my birthplace when writing is definitely on Facebook. And yeah, like this to already say, the one thing that I do find, I'm a fiction writer mostly, but I have done non-fiction. And the one thing that I, you know, with non-fiction obviously I've done is generally like essays and opinion pieces. But the one thing that I do find about fiction is I find it very liberating, because anytime I see something subversive and somebody asks me about it, I always say the character said it, not me.
Do you want to make a last statement, or?
Not really. But yeah, but like I finished doing some work on nation building, 250 pages, and then I realized that this thing was well summarized by, is it Henry Gallo?
I'm here.
Yeah, building the nation. The poem building the nation in 12, I think stanzas, and it was beautiful, and I kept wondering, so what was I have to do?
Okay, sure.
Oh, yeah.
That was it, so yeah.
Yeah, with my words.
Like self-flagellation.
Okay, thanks so much for thanks so much again for this panel, to all the speakers. I think we got beautiful words again take with and make appear in a nice family picture, I think, and I think so to them.
No, I don't want to have the last say, but I just want to say thank you, take this opportunity to say thank you to all of our guests, and I would, remembering flash forwardly into my own future, meeting me again in 20 years, I would say, wow, was that a most wonderful event years back in Bayreuth, and this was done. And I'm grateful to our wonderful guests, and I would like all of them to come, to the front, and all that we may thank all of them. So of course, Olumide Popoola, Kossi Efoui, Simatei, Zukiswa, Wanner, Popoola, Khadeva Badabun, Jonna Komfa, Ludi Mudileno, Susan Uli, of course. So Deep is there. Please put your black girl, Philip Cabo-Purcell. Could you please all come here? And we had. Can is where? Oh, is she outside? Oh, there she is. Okay. And now, so I think now we have all of them. And DJ Max, I'm sorry. No, you are there. Yeah. And very, very little. So, and we prepared a little present, which is also a kind of remembering flash forward, because in last year's finalizing open air concert, we did have a great band, which was 1884, and Nati was supposed to do something archivious. And this CD reminds you of that wonderful open air concert of last year, because it was 1884, which was giving the concert there, and this is a group of musicians who met together with scholars and activists, talking about what colonialism did to Germany. And afterwards, they made music out of that. And this was a wonderful project, and this CD, which is now given to you, should remind you of that last festival. So thank you very much again for coming. So, please put me up into the CD and show me and the flower.
I'm just going to keep you standing there for a while.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We get back in a minute. One last one.
No, make a laugh. And you guys can laugh, you can do something. Show a bit of emotion.
Won't be taken seriously. We're very serious in kids, right?
I know, right? Enough is serious. All right, show. Guys.
Am I about to tell a joke?
Tell that joke.
I'm a sunshine.
Oh, no.
But it's cold outside. I am the lightning. I guess you say what can make me feel this way. My girl.
concert tonight at the Market Square, please wear your badges, because that will allow you to get drinks. You will get drinks, you know, we have a list going on the Market Square, so please wear your orange badges. Whoever lost theirs, come to me and I replace it, yeah? Whoever never got one.
And don't run away, because now I really also want to say thank you to the team, and can we have another family photo, please? And they have to sing too. So maybe now our guests can give presents to the team. Would that be okay? Yeah! So please, team, could you come to the front and stand there? No, of course. I will. You can also announce it.
It's now the time for the team.
So team, please go up. I'm most grateful for everyone. So you can get some presents here. Dear guests, you can get some presents for the team here. Dear guests, you can get the presents for the team. But team, please, put you all ready.
Do we only give one person, or can we give more than one person? Only for one person?
Only for one person. This is for Nadia. I bought this especially for Nadia. Who wants to give something to Nadia?
Me. But I also want to give you Jay. Who are you giving?
So I'm most grateful to the team and particularly
Can we clear the room?
And I want to thank, of course, Nadia and my daughter, something. Thank you for giving it to her, because, you know, you gave this festival a frame, and I thank you very much for that. And thank you very much to Sibel, who was our coordinator. You know, she wants to spend most of the time to everyone, but, you know, for people working, so, you know, this is great. Thank you very much. Also, thank you very much to Lisa, who, you know, jumped into a job. It was very difficult to do the accounting and so on. And thank you very much, Lisa, for that. Hi, here. Thank you. You are the great technician of the world. Thank you so much. And also, thank you very much to the Aya, Marua, thank you very much, Henry, and Anna, for doing this wonderful project yesterday, and for organizing the whole thing. Thank you to Anna Maria Linhardt. I'm so nervous. Thank you, Bennett. Max, thank you very much. Ransom, he's here. Thank you, Katharina. Yeah. Thank you. Nabil. Oh, yes, I was Yes, and now I